By the end of World War I, most navies had started major battleship building programs. The most advanced was that of the United States, which saw 3 New Mexico-class battleships completed in 1918 and 1919, followed by 2 Tennessee-class vessels and 4 of the near-identical Colorado-class. These ships introduced many important new features. Until 1906, shipboard communications had been very primitive. There was no radio, only flag and light signals. Once the battle started, it simply had to work itself out. But the development of radio revolutionized both intership and shore-to-ship communications. The firepower, protection, and performance of the battleship were also improved. Guns were bigger, had more range, and were quicker to load. Turrets were faster to turn and better armored. Heavy armor was redistributed to protect the midsections of the ship and around the magazines that contained the ammunition. New turbo-electric engines were installed, and there began experiments with aircraft for artillery spotting. Between 1921 and 1922, against intense opposition from his superiors, Brigadier General Billy Mitchell set out to prove the superiority of air power against the battleship. In a series of tests, several defenseless World War I battleships were subjected to repeat bombing attacks. Mitchell successfully demonstrated the vulnerability of the battleship to aerial bombardment, which was to become an issue of increasing significance in the years to come. Despite proving his point, Mitchell was court-martialed for contradicting his superiors, but the vulnerability of the battleship remained. In 1922, the naval powers met at a conference at Washington. A moratorium on new battleship construction was declared. New vessels could only be built as replacements for scrapped ones, and the maximum displacement of new battleships was limited to 35,000 tons. To comply, some of the capital ships on the stocks were completed as large aircraft carriers. The most notable being the American Lexington and Saratoga, and the Japanese Akagi and Kaga. But the Washington Treaty started breaking down in the 1930s when the Axis powers of Germany, Japan, and Italy began to build warships that were considerably bigger than permitted. A new building race began, with both Britain and the US laying down fast, modern battleships in the late 1930s. Though most of the products of that race had not been completed by the time war broke out in 1939.